Ethan always thought Thanksgiving was about family, gratitude, and stuffing your face with so much food that you regretted every life decision leading up to that moment. Turns out, his parents had a different interpretation. Thanksgiving was about kicking out your eldest son for refusing to fund a luxury vacation. The evening had been going just fine. The turkey was dry, as always, the mashed potatoes were lumpy, and the conversation was borderline unbearable. Then, right in the middle of dinner, Ethan's father, Greg, set down his fork, locked eyes with him and said, "You have to leave." Ethan paused, a bite of turkey halfway to his mouth. "Huh?" His mother, Linda, looked away. His younger siblings, Matt and Sophie, suddenly found their food extremely interesting, stabbing at their plates as if hoping to disappear. His father, however, remained perfectly composed, like a man delivering a weather forecast rather than evicting his own son. "This is our way of showing gratitude for your limited contributions," Greg added, shaking his head with the kind of disappointment usually reserved for someone who had just set the house on fire. Ethan let out a short laugh. "Wait, what the hell are you talking about?" Greg leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "You're not pulling your weight, Ethan. You've been living here for months, and we barely see any help from you." Ethan blinked. Not pulling his weight? He worked full-time, paid for groceries, not just his own but for everyone, covered takeout when his mom didn't feel like cooking, and even paid his younger siblings' internet bills because, apparently, doing schoolwork without Wi-Fi was child abuse. Oh, and let's not forget the times he gave Greg gas money when he complained about being broke, and now he was being told he wasn't contributing? Ethan scoffed. "Are you serious? I literally pay for—" "Not enough," Greg cut him off. "You're a grown man. You should take care of yourself." And that's when it hit Ethan. This wasn't about rent, bills, or groceries. This was about the conversation they had a few days prior. The one where his parents, in all their delusional glory, asked him to pay for an all-inclusive luxury vacation. Flights, hotel, the whole thing. At first, he thought they were joking. They weren't. And when he refused, they looked at him as if he had slapped them across the face with a turkey leg. And now, here he was, being thrown out like yesterday's leftovers. Ethan exhaled, shaking his head. "So, this is about the vacation, huh?" Linda pursed her lips. "Ethan, family supports each other." He barked out a laugh. "Oh yeah? And what exactly have you done to support me?" "Enough," Greg snapped, slamming his hand on the table. "If you're not willing to help, then you can leave. Simple as that." Ethan looked around, waiting for someone, anyone, to stand up for him. His mother refused to meet his eyes. Sophie looked like she wanted to crawl under the table. Matt? He didn't even glance in his direction. "Fine." "All right," Ethan said, pushing his chair back. "I'll go. But just so we're clear, no more groceries, no more bills, no more helping out. You're on your own." Greg smirked. "Go ahead, loser. See how long you last." Oh, that smirk. That smug, self-satisfied smirk. Ethan burned the image into his memory. That night, he packed his stuff, which didn't take long, considering he never fully settled back in. He found a cheap place in the next town over. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't big. The walls were so thin he could hear his neighbors sneeze. But it was his. And for the first time in a long time, his paycheck actually lasted. No guilt, no extra mouths to feed, no unexpected expenses because family supports each other. It was glorious. For a month there was nothing. No calls, no texts, no passive-aggressive messages from his mother trying to make him feel bad. It was as if he had never existed. At first it stung, but after a while he started to enjoy the silence. Then, one night, his phone rang. It was his mother, and Ethan, against his better judgment, picked up. "Ethan, we need your help," he smirked. "Oh, really? What happened? Your vacation plans fell through?" Silence, then a quiet, hesitant response. "It's Matt. He lost $25,000. Ethan sat up. "He what?" Oh, this was gonna be good. Ethan stared at his phone. waiting for some kind of follow-up that would explain how in the hell his barely legal-to-drink little brother had managed to lose $25,000. His mother, Linda, sighed heavily. He gambled it away. Ethan ran a hand down his face. Let me get this straight. Matt, our dear baby brother, somehow got his hands on $25,000 and thought, hey, you know what would be a great idea? Betting it all on blackjack? Linda's voice cracked. He borrowed it. Ethan's stomach dropped. Borrowed? From who? A pause. Then a muffled argument in the background. His father, Greg, was saying something, probably about how this was somehow Ethan's fault, too. Finally, Linda spoke again. Not a bank loan. Ethan let out a low whistle. Oh, fantastic. So, let me guess. He owes money to the type of guys who don't send late notices. They send friendly reminders in the form of broken kneecaps. Silence. That was a yes. Ethan closed his eyes. A month ago, his father had laughed in his face when he left, told him he'd fail, and now, suddenly, they needed him. And let me guess, Ethan continued, you guys don't have the money to pay it back? Ethan, we're maxed out on our credit cards, Linda admitted. We don't even have enough for next month's rent. Ah, yes, the consequences of their own actions. Who could have seen this coming? Ethan leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. He could hang up right now, let them figure it out. They were so eager to kick him out, to cut him off. They wanted him to handle his own problems. But then there was Matt. Yeah, he was a dumbass, but he was still his brother. And if he owed money to those kinds of people, this wasn't just a learning experience. This was dangerous. Ethan exhaled sharply. Fine, I'm coming over. The relief in his mother's voice was almost pathetic. Thank you, Ethan. He didn't answer. He just hung up, grabbed his keys, and walked out the door. The drive back to his parents' house felt surreal. He hadn't been there since Thanksgiving, and he sure as hell never thought he'd be back this soon. Everything looked the same. Same crappy cars parked in driveways, same Christmas lights that no one bothered to take down. But he felt different. He pulled into the driveway and sat there for a moment, gripping the steering wheel. A part of him wanted to turn around, just drive off and let them deal with their mess. But instead, he sighed, got out, and knocked on the door. His mother opened it almost immediately, looking exhausted. Ethan. He stepped inside. The house smelled exactly the same, cheap air freshener and whatever candle his mother insisted on buying in bulk. Matt was on the couch, staring at the floor like a guilty golden retriever. Greg stood near the dining table, arms crossed, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. All right, Ethan said, crossing his arms. Somebody tell me how the hell we got here. Matt mumbled something incoherent. Speak up, Einstein. Matt sighed. It started small, just a couple $100. Then I won big, so I kept going. Ethan rolled his eyes. Classic. Matt finally looked up, face pale. Then I lost everything. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Okay, but you didn't have $25,000 to lose. So who the hell gave you that kind of money? Matt hesitated. Greg spoke up instead. He took out a loan. Something about the way he said it made Ethan's stomach churn. What kind of loan? His mother answered this time, her voice painfully calm. Not a bank loan. Oh, Ethan pinched the bridge of his nose. So, let me get this straight. Matt, who is barely an adult, took out a loan from some shady backroom goon, lost it all, and now has a week to pay it back? End of the week, Greg mumbled. Ethan let out a slow, deep breath. And you have... how much? His mother shook her head. Nothing. Ethan glanced between them, barely able to believe what he was hearing. A month ago, these people had laughed at him when he walked out the door, called him useless, and now they were drowning in debt, begging him for help. And the worst part? He actually had the money. Not all of it, but since moving out, he'd been saving. He could cover about half. Should he? His parents sure as hell didn't deserve it. But Matt was different. Yeah, he was an idiot. But this wasn't just about teaching him a lesson. This was serious. Ethan inhaled sharply. I can cover some of it. His mother let out a relieved sob. His father said nothing. Matt just nodded, still looking like he was about to throw up. I'll wire you 12 grand, Ethan said. That's all I can do. Linda grabbed his hand. Thank you, Ethan. He pulled away. Don't thank me. Just make sure this never happens again. He turned to Matt. And you're gonna pay me back. Every damn cent. Matt swallowed hard. I will. Ethan didn't believe him, but that was a problem for later. For now, he had just bailed them out, even though he knew he shouldn't have, and he had a feeling this was far from over. A week passed, then 2, then a month. Guess how much of that 12 grand Ethan had seen? If you guessed literally nothing, congratulations. You win absolutely nothing, just like Ethan. At first he tried to be patient. Maybe Matt was still figuring things out. Maybe he was getting back on his feet. Then one day, patience ran out. He called his brother. Matt answered after a few rings. Hey, Ethan. Ethan didn't waste time. Where's my money? A pause. Then the world's most pathetic excuse. I don't have it yet. Ethan clenched his jaw. You said you'd pay me back. I will. I just need more time. Ethan let out a bitter laugh. More time? Matt, it's been a month. You haven't even sent me $20. Silence. In the background, Ethan could hear what sounded like a video game? Oh hell no. You're screwing around, aren't you? No, I'm trying, man. Ethan cut him off. I don't care about excuses. I bailed you out. I didn't have to, but I did. And now you're just ignoring it? I'm not ignoring it, Matt snapped. Things have been hard, okay? Ethan laughed. Yeah? Well, they're about to get a lot harder if you don't start paying me back. More silence. Ethan exhaled. Whatever. Figure it out. He hung up. At first he expected something. Maybe $100 here, 50 there, anything. But nope. Nothing. So he decided to go straight to the source of all terrible decisions. Greg and Linda. If they had the money to bail Matt out, surely they could help him repay it, right? Ethan called his father. Greg answered with a sigh, like Ethan was inconveniencing him. What? I need to talk to you about Matt's debt. What about it? Ethan took a deep breath. He hasn't paid me anything, not a dime. His father paused, then with absolute indifference. So? Ethan froze. So? You told me family helps each other. I helped him. I helped you. And now you're just, what, pretending that doesn't matter? Greg actually laughed. Well, that's your problem, isn't it? Ethan's grip on the phone tightened. Excuse me? You chose to give him the money, Greg said, like he was explaining something to a particularly slow child. That was your decision. Don't come crying to us about it. Ethan was speechless. A month ago, these people begged him for help, told him family supports each other. But now that it was Ethan who needed something, suddenly those rules didn't apply anymore. Ethan forced out a laugh. So let me get this straight. When you need money, family helps each other. But when I need it, I'm on my own? Greg, without a single shred of shame. That's life. Ethan felt pure rage crawl up his spine. Got it. And then he hung up. For a few minutes, he just sat there, staring at his phone, trying to process just how deep their selfishness went. Then something clicked. He wasn't about to let this go. Not this time. They thought they could walk all over him, thought he'd always be there to bail them out, to pick up the pieces while they treated him like trash. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. Ethan sat in his apartment staring at his phone, replaying his father's words over and over. That's life. Oh, that's life. That's life. These people used him, begged him for help, guilt-tripped him into giving them money, and now, when it was time to pay up, they just shrugged and moved on? Nope. Not this time. Ethan spent the next couple of days thinking. If Matt wasn't going to pay him back and Greg and Linda were pretending it wasn't their problem, He needed another way to get his money back. And then, the perfect idea hit him. One so stupidly simple, he almost laughed at himself for not thinking of it sooner. See? Back when Ethan lived at home, he was the one who set up all the household accounts. Wi-Fi, cable, streaming services, the whole package. And since he was the only one paying for them, they were all still in his name. And guess what? His brilliant family never bothered to change the billing information after he left. Ethan smirked. Oh, this is going to be fun. That night, Ethan logged in and canceled everything. Internet? Gone. Cable? See ya. Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus? Bye-bye. Within minutes, the house was officially off the grid. And then he waited. Sure enough, the next morning, his phone rang. Linda. Ethan answered casually. Hey, Mom. Linda's voice was already frantic. Ethan, the internet's down. Ethan smirked. Huh, weird. Can you look into it? Your sister has schoolwork, and we can't even watch TV. Ethan stretched, pretending to think. Oh, I already know what happened. What? I canceled it. Silence. Then, you what? Ethan leaned back in his chair. Yeah. See, I was still paying for all of it, and since you made it very clear that I should handle my own problems, I figured you should do the same. More silence. Then, in the background, Greg's oh-so-lovely voice. What's going on? Linda hissed into the phone. Ethan canceled everything. Good. We don't need him, Greg snapped. Ethan laughed. Oh yeah? Let's see how long you last without Wi-Fi, old man. There was some muffled arguing, and then Greg grabbed the phone. Listen, you little... Ethan hung up. God, that felt good. But he had no idea what was coming next. Ethan was feeling good. For once in his life, he wasn't the family's personal ATM. He wasn't their doormat, their go-to fixer, their oh, Ethan will handle it guy. Nope. This time, they could deal with their own mess. And the best part? He knew they were losing their minds without Wi-Fi. His dad, Greg, pretended to be all tough, but the man couldn't go one day without watching conspiracy videos on YouTube. Meanwhile, his mom, Linda, was probably having a meltdown over the fact that she couldn't binge-watch her reality shows, which were about as real as Greg's job-hunting efforts. And Matt? Oh, poor, sweet, dumb Matt. He was probably dying without his online gaming addiction. Ethan won, or so he thought. A few days later, Ethan came home from work and immediately knew something was wrong. His front door was unlocked, and Ethan always locked his door. Always. His stomach dropped as he slowly pushed it open. And that's when he saw it. His apartment was trashed, couch cushions everywhere, drawers pulled out, clothes dumped on the floor. Laptop? Gone. TV? Gone. Ethan just stood there, stunned. And then it hit him. This wasn't a random break-in. This was them. His own family had broken into his apartment. And that's when Ethan officially declared war. Ethan stood in the middle of his wrecked apartment, fists clenched, heart pounding. His laptop was gone. His TV was gone. His drawers had been ripped open. Clothes were tossed everywhere like some kind of twisted treasure hunt. Except the only prize was Ethan's growing rage. This wasn't some random break-in. This wasn't some desperate thief looking for a quick payday. This was them. His own damn family had broken into his home, stolen from him, and trashed his place. All because he had the audacity to stop letting them use him. Ethan took a deep breath, pulled out his phone, and called the cops. When the officer arrived, he took one look at the disaster zone that used to be Ethan's apartment and asked, "Do you have any suspects?" Ethan didn't even hesitate. "Yeah, my parents, and my idiot brother." The officer blinked. "Your family?" Ethan nodded. "I used to live with them. They kicked me out, I cut them off financially, and now we're not exactly on good terms. Pretty sure they thought this was some kind of lesson." He explained everything, the money, the debt, the Wi-Fi revenge, all of it. The cop took notes, then hit him with the big question, "Do you want to press charges?" Ethan paused. Not because he was having second thoughts, but because he realized just how big this was. If he pressed charges, this wasn't just some petty family drama. This was real. This was legal. But then he looked around, looked at his empty TV stand, looked at the pile of clothes dumped on the floor, looked at the space where his laptop used to be. They didn't just rob him. They assumed he'd do nothing. They thought he'd just take it, like he always had. Ethan looked the officer in the eye. Yeah, press charges. The next day, the police showed up at his parents' house. Ethan wasn't there, but he got the call from his mother soon enough. Ethan, what did you do? He leaned back in his chair, calm as hell. Oh, I don't know. Maybe something about the fact that you broke into my apartment and stole my stuff? It wasn't a big deal, she shrieked. We just what? Ethan cut her off. Taught me a lesson. Took back what you thought you deserved? Tell me, Mom, do you even feel bad about this? Silence. Then in a lower voice she muttered, You didn't have to call the cops. Ethan laughed. Oh, so let me get this straight. When I help you, I'm family. But when you rob me, I'm just supposed to let it slide? Yeah, no, not happening. It wasn't robbery, she argued. The police disagree, she huffed. Ethan, we can fix this. Just drop the charges. No, her breath caught. What? I said no. She gasped like he had just slapped her. Ethan, this is serious. Your brother, I gave him 12 grand, Ethan snapped, and he still hasn't paid me back. Now he's breaking into my home. I'm done. Silence. Then she made one last desperate move. Are you really going to do this to your own family? Ethan exhaled, closing his eyes for a second. Then he said, No, Mom. You did this to yourselves. And then he hung up. A week later, Ethan got another call, not from his parents this time, but from the police. The case? Open and shut. His TV and laptop had been found at a local pawn shop. Guess whose name was on the seller's receipt? Matt. The cops didn't even have to try hard on this one. Surveillance footage, pawn shop records, it was all there. Matt was officially charged with burglary. His parents, charged as accomplices. Ethan, feeling like a damn genius. But the real fun started when his grandparents found out. See, Ethan had never been particularly close to his grandparents, but they were old school, the kind of people who believed in hard work, integrity, and not stealing from your own damn family. So, when one of Ethan's aunts spilled the tea about what happened, they went nuclear. Ethan got a call from his grandfather one evening. His voice was low and raspy. Ethan, is it true? Did your parents and Matt steal from you? Ethan, deadpan. Yep. There was a long pause. Then, in a voice so cold it could freeze lava, his grandfather said, They will regret it. Ethan had no idea what that meant, but boy, was he excited to find out. Within days, his parents' world imploded. Grandparents cut them off, completely. No more financial help, no more covering their rent when they fell behind, no more money for their emergencies, nothing. Greg lost his job. Apparently, having a criminal record doesn't look great on a resume. Who knew? Matt got probation, but the real punishment? Grandparents paid off Ethan's $12,000 out of their own pockets. They told Ethan, You're the only one in this family who actually acted with integrity. We refuse to let you suffer because of their stupidity. And that was the moment Ethan knew he had won. His parents, now broke, struggling, and completely on their own. Ethan, debt-free, drama-free, and living his best life. And the best part, they had nobody to blame but themselves. Months later, Matt texted him a half-hearted apology. Ethan didn't reply, because for the first time in years, he was finally completely free. No more bailing them out, no more being used, no more being the responsible one, while everyone else acted like reckless idiots. From now on, Ethan was living for himself, and if his parents ever found themselves in trouble again, they could figure it out on their own.